Raider Nation, hey, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, brought to you by BetDSI, and I'm your host, Mitchell Renz. I'm going to be breaking down the 2019 NFL Draft for the Oakland Raiders. Now, I know a bunch of you were kind of mad about my grades that I gave out for the Raiders on day one, so maybe my grades for day two will be a little bit nicer. Now, there was a trade that went down. The Jags, they traded up to pick 35, and they ended up getting that pick. So the Raiders, they traded back to 38, and then they actually traded back again to pick number 40. So the Raiders, I don't think that the player that they were looking for on the board at 35, they thought was going to get taken. I actually thought it was going to be Greedy Williams. So then when they traded back to 38 and then back to 40, I will applaud the Raiders for going and trading back, getting extra picks. I mean, for how long have we been saying that we wanted more picks? I think the Raiders now, they have now 2 picks in the 4th round, which I like a lot. But let's talk about pick 40, Trayvon Mullen, Clemson cornerback. And I think if I'm looking and seeing what Jon Gruden and Mike Mayock are doing, they're looking at their biggest needs and they're addressing them. Now, they went out, they got Clelin Ferrell. You went out, got Josh Jacobs. You went out and got Johnathan Abram. Now you go get a quarterback who, I don't know if he necessarily has extreme upside. Tom Downey has him ranked as our 9th-ranked cornerback here at Chat Sports. I mean, 36 tackles last year, 4 tackles for a loss, an interception, and 3 pass breakups. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to grade the pick. So if there's one thing that I've seen that John and Mike are doing, they're looking for solid players who may not have a lot of upside, but are solid players that you're going to be able to use probably right away. So I want you to grade the Mullen pick. A, B, C, D, or F. Tom, he gave this pick a C because I think it's an average pick. Now, Greedy Williams was still on the board. I was really hoping for Greedy Williams because I thought if you would have paired Greedy with Gareon Conley, that's a solid duo. Now, here's the Raiders' updated depth chart for the cornerback for their defensive back position as I'm struggling here. So, Gareon Conley, Daryl Worley, Carl Joseph, LaMarcus Joyner. Now, we can see LaMarcus Joyner. I think he's also going to work a little bit there in the nickel. When you go out and get Abram, who's going to be able to really hit. He's a box safety. He's really going to be able to hit it hard there. Probably could also play a little bit behind Carl Joseph. If there's one thing that John said, he said it 2 weeks ago, is that we're going to go out and add a lot of positions to that secondary. They wanted 5 cornerbacks. Why? Because last year the Raiders dealt with a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the football. Heck, they gave up the most points per game in the NFL. Now, I'm looking at the Raiders draft needs. Edge, you filled it with Clelin Ferrell. Yes, I understand my Raiders draft grade, but here's the thing. I like Clelin Ferrell. Heck, I had Clelin Ferrell mocked to the Raiders in my last mock draft. Because I gave something a low grade, I just think it was a little bit of a reach. So they filled the edge need. You filled the need at running back with the best guy in Josh Jacobs. You guys know I like him. At cornerback now, you fill that need with Trayvon Mullen. I'm just saying, the Raiders, they're filling needs. So you guys are asking me all the time, Mitch, why are your draft grades so low? Because I thought they just reached on him just a little bit. So I do like Clelin Ferrell. Josh Jacobs is my number 1 running back. Johnathan Abram, I'll say this. He's going to bring the lumber, and he is the perfect fit for the Raiders. He's going to be able to bring that attitude. And I know Raider Nation, you guys are going to love him so far. So, speaking of so far, what do you guys think of the Raiders draft so far? What would you grade it? A B, a C, a D, or an F? If you want to throw in a one-word reaction to what you think that the Raiders' 2019 draft has been so far, they've been active in the 2nd round. They traded back a few times. We got a few more picks, which I like to see. But I want to know from entire start to finish. So from Clelin Ferrell at 4, Josh Jacobs at 24, Johnathan Abram at 27, and now Trayvon Mullen at pick 40. What do you guys think of the Raiders' 2019 NFL draft so far? Now, you guys have been blowing me up saying, Mitch, now what are the Raiders' biggest needs? So I'm looking at the Raiders' biggest needs right now entering day 3 of the 2019 NFL draft. I still think their biggest need is defensive end. When you have only 13 sacks the year before, ranked dead last in the NFL, you still need to be able to fill the defensive end need. Now, Clelin Ferrell was our 5th-ranked defensive end here at Chat Sports. And now I think if they could potentially add another player that they could pair with, like an Arden Key also, at the end of the day, guys, we need more depth there. Tight end, we're still looking for a tight end ever since Jared Cook decided to take his talents elsewhere. An offensive guard, I'm a little bit worried about Colton Miller's knee injury. Brandon Parker, I'm also not too sold on there, but we definitely need a guard. And then linebacker. Mack Wilson's still on the board. Mack Wilson could be an interesting pick for the Raiders here. So, what I wanted to do is I wanted to break down 3 players that I think that the Oakland Raiders could target at pick 106 and at pick 109, okay? So their first 2 picks in the 4th round on day 3, because if I try to predict what they're going to do in round 7, 6, 5, guys, it's going to be absolutely crazy. So I'm breaking it down, 3 players that the Raiders could target at 106 and 109. The first guy here is Foster Moreau, tight end out of LSU. Now, I know that Derek Carr has leaned on a pass-catching tight end in the past, like a Jared Cook. You're just not going to get that with Foster Moreau. And I think when you look at what he can do, the guy can block. In 2018, 22 catches, 272 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And I think at the end of the day, when you go out, you draft Josh Jacobs at 24, you're going to have to be able to run the football. I get that they already have some other pass-catching tight ends, but with Foster Moreau, he's one of the better blockers. And I think if he's able to lead the way for Josh Jacobs, I think it's one of those interesting picks. I would argue right now he's one of the best run blocking tight ends that I've seen in this year's draft. So if the Raiders are looking for a tight end, Foster Moreau could be an interesting pick there for them at 106 or at 109. Now, I said that the Raiders' biggest need is defensive end. So these next 2 players that I'm going to talk about are both defensive ends. And I've actually talked about this one player before on the Raiders Report. It's Charles Omenihu. And I broke down, I'm going to say about a month and a half ago, that the Raiders could potentially target Charles Omenihu. And I had him in my very, very first mock draft. Now, you want to talk about just physical physique? He's got the physical physique of a defensive end. 6'5", 280 pounds. Here's the thing, though. He's just very raw. He's a raw athlete, and he would be a good fit in this 4-3 defensive scheme that the Raiders are running. His thing, though, is he just lacks some instinct. And if there's one thing I'm a little bit worried about, it's something that I'm seeing the Raiders doing in this year's draft. They're going after players who don't necessarily lack instinct, who may not have a high upside. They're trying to hit singles, and it's okay to hit singles, but I think Charles Omenihu in the 4th round, if he can live up to his hype, would be a great fit. So, those are 2 players. I'm going to give you one more, okay? So, who should the Raiders target on day 3 of the 2019 NFL Draft, all right? I want you guys to comment below. So, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, who should the Raiders target on day 3 of the NFL Draft? Also, make sure you guys subscribe to the Raiders Report, youtube.com/Raiders Report. I hope you guys don't hate me for my Raiders grades. I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, BetDSI. They've hooked us up with the best promo code on the internet. It's Raiders120. So go to chatsports.com/bet. Use our promo code Raiders120 for 120% deposit bonus. If you put down $50, Raider Nation, you're going to get $60 for free. If you put down $100, you're going to get $120 for free. Put down $500, get $600 for free, thanks to our sponsor at BetDSI. All right, let's look at my last player here out of Iowa, Anthony Nelson, defensive lineman. And he's got really impressive tape and eye-popping physical traits. Here's the thing, though. The athletic limitations, they're definitely there. But when I look at Anthony Nelson, I see that there's the extreme upside in Charles Omenihu, and then I look at what the Raiders kind of have done this entire draft and gone a safe route. Anthony Nelson, I think, is a safe route, and I just think he's just a Gruden grinder. Now, I don't know if he's going to be able to start right away for the Raiders, but if he's one of these guys who can come in at 6'7", 271 pounds, show John that he's willing to work and show that he's willing to be a Raider, which I think Anthony Nelson is willing to do, he could work his way into at least a position where he's at least playing here and there for the Oakland Raiders. And I mean, hey, Anthony Nelson, I'm telling you right now, he is a Gruden grinder. So I gave you a few names. I gave you Charles Omenihu, Foster Moreau, and I gave you Anthony Nelson. Here are 3 players that I think that the Raiders could target at 106 and at 109. So Raider Nation, I want you to comment below. Who are the Raiders going to target at 106? And we also got pick 109, so why not throw it in the comments section. Who are the Raiders target at 106? Please comment below if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook. Also, make sure you guys give me a follow on IG and on Twitter at MitchellRenz365, and make sure that you're representing the nation tomorrow when we go live on youtube.com/chatsportstv. We still got covering rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. Raider Nation, I better see you there. Raider Nation, what's going on? Is this the #1 Raiders channel on YouTube? For Chucky Heads, believe it, baby. And if you haven't already, subscribe right here. I'm giving you Chucky Heads, news, rumors, Raider Nation rumors. And look at this, I'm making your life easier. Check out my next video Thanks for watching, and go Raiders.